Hi everyone, welcome to the first part of Chapter 1, which today we're going to look at the objective and tools of world regional geography. So in this first part of the chapter, I'm going to first talk about a little bit what is geography. This might be the first time you're taking a geography class. I'm going to talk about what do we mean by a region, and then the different types of things we're going to be looking at in each region. And so first off, what is geography? People often think of geography as just being about maps. We do love maps and geography, but it is a lot more than that. Geography, in its most basic sense, is the study of the Earth and the way we interact with it. But it also includes much, much more than that. Geography is divided into two main sides, one being physical geography, the other being cultural geography. If you have taken or plan on taking a physical geography class, you might look at things like the formation of landforms, rocks and minerals, water, weather and climate, plants and animals through the study of biogeography, and soils. And so that's more on the side of natural science. In cultural geography, we study everything from population, economics, languages, religions, political systems, settlements, and food. I have taught a geography of food class before, which is very interesting. And that stuff tends to be more towards the social sciences. Lots of geographers, me included, mix physical geography and cultural geography together, which is why I love geography so much. In this class, for each region, we're going to talk a little bit about the physical geography, but we're mostly going to focus on the cultural geography of regions. But we are going to look at how that physical geography affects that cultural geography. We are going to spend the next module looking at the physical processes, and then the module after that, we're going to be looking at the human processes before we jump into the regions. And what do we mean by regions in the first place? This map has several regions from your textbook. Some we're going to cover, some we're not. We do not have time to cover the United States and Canada, but we are going to be looking at Europe, Russia and the near abroad, the Middle East and North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, South and East Asia, Latin America, and the last one we look at is Oceania. Regions are just groups of countries with something in common. It could be a language, it could be a cultural aspect, and often these lines are very fuzzy. And so when we look at what do countries in a region have in common, right, how is North America different from Latin America? Um, Now, if we can think off the bat, we could say, well, the United States and Canada both have predominantly English speakers, but that's really not even the full picture. Canada actually has two official languages, English and French. The United States actually does not have an official language. And the United States is also has a very strong cultural and economic connection to Mexico. So discussing them as two separate regions might seem a little counterintuitive, but we have to make these designations somewhere. So the boundaries between these regions are often fuzzy and arbitrary. They can change between textbooks. Some textbooks might make Central America and South America two different regions. Some might include Mexico as part of a North American region. Geography also likes to use different concepts to look at the world, and two of our favorites are space and place. And so, what do we mean by space and place? Space examines spatial variables or how things are distributed through space. And I don't mean outer space, but I mean, so why is population centers focused in certain spaces? Why is there distinct racial distributions of people throughout the United States? So how do these phenomena differ across space? We often do this with maps. Maps are a great tool in order to look at things, how they are distributed through space. In the second part of chapter 1, we're going to look a lot at maps, how maps can often be deceiving, and how we can use maps to look at these different phenomena. Place looks at what makes a place unique. Um, and we talk about something called sense of place, and that is determined by many variables. we have a sense of place about many places, whether that's the college campus or home or the city or the country or Southern California. There are all these things that go together that create this sense of place. They're often verbal, some of them are nonverbal. They can be sights and smells. And so to go back to space for a second, we want to know that should say where on the Earth's surface do phenomena occur and to what degree of intensity. So, and also why are they occurring there? So here is a population density map of China. We might want to know why the population density is so much greater on the east coast of China as opposed to the west. Um, right? And then here is a precipitation map of the United States. From a physical geography perspective, we want to know why, generally speaking, the eastern portion of the United States gets so much more precipitation than the western part, with the exception of the Pacific Northwest. You can see up here, right, Seattle and Oregon, at least the western parts, are known for their heavy precipitation, as opposed to us down here in Southern California, not so much. And when we're talking about sense of place, this is a picture from Lopburi, Thailand. I spent some time in Thailand. There's a lot of things going on in this picture that kind of create that sense of place of Thailand. You can see here is a sign for Coca-Cola that's written in Thai. We have different types of food being served. We have some kind of tropical plants here. Most obvious, we have a man who's riding an elephant down the street, which we are certainly less likely to see in Southern California. So we want to think about what goes into sense of place, right? If you've ever traveled to other parts of the country or other parts of the world, you know that they have kind of a very particular sense of place. And next, I'm going to go through within each region what we're going to be looking at. So the first thing we're going to look at in each region is the physical geography. These are the Simien Mountains in Ethiopia, which, while I did not take this picture, it is a country that I have been fortunate enough to visit. And so when we look at each region, we're going to look at the climate. What is the weather and climate like there? Landforms, is it mountainous? Physical features, etc. Right? Is it a desert? Is it a rainforest? Is it a mix of both? Next, we're going to be looking at culture, and here is a picture from Hong Kong. And culture can be defined as the values, beliefs, mode of behavior, social institutions, knowledge, and skills that are transmitted and learned within a group of people. There's often a huge cultural variation within regions, but some cultural aspects that bind a region together. We're going to look at religion. This is St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. Several of the regions that we look at will have a predominant religion, while there will definitely be a mix of other religions put in there, which often can affect politics in a specific region. We're going to look at the political geography. Here's a snapshot of the US-Mexico border, which we do not live too far from. So we're going to look at boundaries, divisions, what does the government look like, and the possessions of states. And by states, I mean what you tend to think of as countries. And so what does the state own? What does it not own? Right? That varies from country to country. We're going to look at language. This is a billboard from Croatia, uh, which I've also visited. And so regions will often have a language connection, and even if they're not, everybody is not all speaking the same language, it might be part of the same language family. Many countries in Europe speak a Romance language. English is not one of them, but French and Spanish and Italian all have a connection. So here's a picture of Croatian. I have a good friend who I was with in Croatia who is a native Polish speaker, which is not that far away from Croatia. And she said, I can kind of understand Croatian, but it's kind of inside out Polish to me. So how kind of language connections play out across regions. We're going to look at demography, the study of population. We're going to look at birth rates and death rates, um, kind of where places fall within something called a demographic transition model, which we'll talk a lot about. Um, but are places more heavily populated, less populated? Is their population growing really fast, or is it declining? And we'll talk about the reasons behind that. We're going to look at urbanization, which is the movement of people from rural to urban regions and the growth of cities. This is the city of Accra, Ghana, which is growing very, very rapidly. Like a lot of countries who are less developed or developing, those cities are growing super rapidly. We, as of very recently, globally, over 50% of us live in cities or urbanized areas, which is a first. And more developed countries tend to be more urbanized than less developed countries. So we'll talk about why that is and how that shift takes place. We're going to look at economics or economies, both informal and formal. This is a spice market in Istanbul, Turkey, which I was able to visit. Not my picture, as you can tell by the fxcuisine.com on the bottom, but I have been to this market. And so, what we mean by formal and informal economies is so formal economies are the things that you normally think at, right? You get paid, you pay taxes, you go to a store, you pay with money. Informal economies happen all around the world and including in the US. And these include things that happen outside of that formal economy, such as bartering and exchange. And lastly, we're going to look at the history of each region. In many parts of the world, we are going to have a particular focus on colonialism, as it has such long-lasting effects on regions. And so here is a map of the United States, looking at kind of how we gained different parts of the United States, part from Spain, part during the Louisiana Purchase. And so we're going to look at some historic maps of some regions to see how they have changed. So next you're going to proceed on to exercise 1. There's only one exercise in this chapter. Um, there's also your country journal, and this one is going to be really easy. It's just going to serve as an introduction to the course. You're going to do it on a discussion board. And I encourage you, after you post, to go and read your classmates' posts. They'll be public to everybody. But we want to know, why are you taking this class? Is it a requirement for your major, and what might your major be if it is? Are you just interested in geography? Is it the only thing that fit with your schedule? And then I'd like you to list the countries that you have visited. If you haven't left the United States, that's totally fine, but maybe then list the most interesting place in the United States that you have been. And then I want to know, why were you there? Were you on vacation? Were you living there? Are you a former or current member of the military? So next, you're going to proceed on to that exercise 1 and introduce yourself to us.